This Bible question is an excerpt from our television program, What Do the Scriptures Say? We hope that it will enrich your spiritual life, and we hope that you'll come back to www.scripturesay.com to find answers to your Bible questions. Thank you. All right, let me take you to one of the wonders of the world, to Petra. Petra means rock, by the way. And before we get there, I want to read the passage that sheds some biblical significance on what you're going to see. In Obadiah chapter 1, verses 1 through 4, the vision of Obadiah, thus says the Lord God concerning Edom. We have heard a report from the Lord, and an envoy has been sent among the nations, saying, Arise and let us go up against her for battle. Behold, I will make you small among the nations. You are greatly despised. The arrogance of your heart has deceived you. You who live in the clefts of the rock, in the loftiness of your dwelling places, who say in your heart, Who will bring me down to earth? Though you build high like the eagle, though you set your nest among the stars, from there I will bring you down, declares the Lord. Remember that passage as we go into Petra, and it will begin to make some wonderful sense to you. Here's the place on the map in the Bible lands. It's south of Jerusalem and across the Jordan River. We're still in Jordan today, looking at an ancient city of the Nabateans, a place called Petra. And as we entered the area of Petra, one of the first things I noticed is how different our cultures are. It's fascinating to. Here's a little souvenir stand, and maybe you can see in this next shot. Outside they have all of these fancy, I think they're belly dancer dresses, and I just was fascinated at the quantity of them available and the different styles available. And didn't see them selling many of them to the American tourists, but there they were for display. To get into Petra, you have to walk, or you can take a camel, or you can take a horse if you're adventuresome, or you can take a little cart that they supply. As you walk through the canyon, it gets narrower and narrower, and on both sides of the canyon you see these tombs carved out of solid rock. This is solid rock. It may not be as hard as granite. It may be more along the lines of limestone, but let me assure you it is solid rock. And this little canyon, as you can see here, becomes narrower and narrower, and there's only one way in and only one way out to get into Petra. Can you see the little slit in the rock in this picture? You can see the people standing at the bottom of your screen there, which gives you some idea of the scale. This reminds me, as I went through this canyon and as I came out the other side of a trip that I've made down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, every time that you turn a corner, you see another absolutely beautiful sight, and the colors change as you walk through here. It is absolutely beautiful beyond words to describe, but a very narrow canyon. So this city would have been very well protected. Here's a picture of a little Bedouin boy. He was obviously, if you can look carefully at the picture, he probably hasn't been groomed in quite a while. I noticed that he had a very distinctive odor, if I can put it that way, as I got close to him. A lovely little child who probably spoke a half a dozen languages, trying to sell me some postcards, and I taught him, I love dealing with the children over there, they're so much fun. I taught him some American slang in Arabic. The Arabic word for dog is kelp. And so I taught him to say the American phrase, "What's up, kelp?" And he absolutely loved that. Everybody, on my way out, I noticed that everybody he greeted was, "What's up, kelp?" And so we combined a little Arabic and a little American slang. Now you're looking at the Roman road. This road they have dated to 2,000 years old. It's bumpy. I can tell you, you got to kind of watch where you put your feet as you're traveling through there. And if you were on one of the carts that they wanted to rent you, you really got a rough ride. Shrines carved out of the rock everywhere. These would be shrines to deities, shrines to ancient members of the family, and then I snapped this picture. I want you to take a look at it. You can see that it's kind of a trough. If you look into the distance, you can see that that trough is carved out of the solid rock face of the canyon. This was one of the aqueducts that was carved out of the rock. The Nabateans were known throughout the world, like the Romans were known, for their ability to take water from great distances to bring them into their cities. And Petra was in the middle of a desert, and so it needed a water supply. And so the water would come ingeniously. They figured out how they do this, I don't know, how they could get the water to flow. They had just the right angle to get it to come down. But there's something else in the picture that I want you to see. You can see the trough in the distance, and then you see, perhaps you can see in the middle of the picture, there's kind of a pool there, and then a trough coming out on the other side. That's an ancient water filter. The water with some sediment would be coming along in that trough, and then it would gather in that pool. It would come into the pool, and the sediment, some of the heavier solids, would just gather in that pool, and then out of the other side would come filtered water. Very clever, thousands of years ago. We're about to enter through this little slit in the rock. That bright area you see ahead of you is one of the most magnificent sights in the ancient world. We're about to enter into the open area where what is known as the treasury. And here it is. Here is the treasury of Petra, carved out of solid rock. They carved it without plans, without a blueprint that we know of any kind. They started at the top and carved their way down. That's the way that this was constructed. It has been defaced on numerous occasions throughout the centuries. This probably, in all likelihood, was carved some 100 years BC, and was thought to contain great riches of gold. There were legends that some of in the upper stories there of what is called the treasury, and I'll tell you why in just a second. In what is called the treasury here, there was thought to be stored caches of gold, and during the years, the Dark Ages, and the years when the Muslims overran the Bible lands, they came into this area and they defaced statues because they didn't like statues that depicted human beings, and they also tried to break into some of the wonderfully carved bowls that are found there at the top, because they suspected that they contained gold caches. These marvelous structures never contained treasures. They were tombs. This is a tomb. It's called the treasury because it was thought to contain great treasure, but it is, in fact, a tomb. And this is a picture of the open area. You're looking from the treasury back toward that little slit in the rock that we walked through, and you can see the number of tourists that were there that day from all over the world. Hundreds and hundreds of people visit this area, and if you ever have a chance to go to Petra, make sure you take that opportunity. The light every few moments would change around this area, and the colors are just beyond my ability to describe to you. Here's our little group as we gathered there in front of the treasury. We had 20 people that took our tour, just about the right size. Here's a little close-up of one of the statues that had been carved, that had been defaced later in its history. And on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see something that looks kind of like stairs, and that's exactly what they are. These were stairs that the original carvers of this monument used to climb down from the top as they were carving this marvelous structure out of the sand, out of the limestone. Here again is another close-up picture of what is found at the top of the treasury. You might notice that there's some bullet holes there. On one occasion, a Muslim group came through and fired thousands of rounds, again looking for treasure, thinking that they could perhaps collapse some of those structures and find treasure underneath. When you're in Jordan, you will see these fellas. This is a Jordanian national policeman in his full dress garb, and he was quite the center of attention. It seemed to me that all of the young ladies wanted to have a picture with him, which he didn't seem to mind very much. And there he is. What you can't see is he had an AK-47 on his back, full of rounds. He's got his knife there in the front, and very friendly people. You felt very secure there. They wanted to make sure that tourists were always secure while you were in Jordan, and we enjoyed that visit very much. When you leave the treasury area, you go into an open expanse where the city of Petra existed centuries ago, and you find literally hundreds and hundreds of tombs. This is a view of that area. And then you find something else that you find in any place in the Bible lands where the Romans were found. You find an amphitheater, a Colosseum type structure, and this is the one that's found there in Petra. Again, carved out of solid rock. Take a look at a close-up here of the seating area. Can you imagine that? The work that must have gone into that. And this, folks, is a 2,000-year-old theater. I tried to get a close-up of the beauty of the rock and the formations. This is what Petra was carved out of. The pinks and the reds and the different colors, the yellows you see there, all from the minerals that are being leached out of the stone. It's just very difficult to describe how beautiful the rock is, and then to see these structures carved into it is just absolutely stunning. This is a picture of something that's somewhat of a mystery. These are stairways to heaven, I guess. They go no place. You see them regularly, and there's several traditions attached to them, but nobody knows exactly what they are or what they represent. The best guess is that it represents a pathway into heaven, but again, these were carved downwards. They would start at the top and then come down, and these went into tomb areas, but not associated with a tomb. They were just there depicting a stairway to heaven. Here's some more examples of tombs in the Petra area. A very wide open area, but as I mentioned to you, there was only one way in and one way out through that narrow slit in the rock, and so they had a very defensible area. Today, Just recently, it has been inhabited by the Bedouins. And I understand the Jordanians, in order to make sure that tourists were comfortable and to encourage tourism, has evicted the Bedouins. I wanted to take you as close as we could possibly get to the tomb. And so I noticed on my visit there, as I approached this open tomb, there's a barrier there that's kind of a little askew. So I took a chance, not wanting to offend anybody, but I wanted to see what it looked like inside. And here's a picture. I was somewhat timid. I didn't want to walk all the way in there and violate any rules of decorum or anything, but it went back for, in a couple of places, for a couple 100 feet. Again, you're looking at something that was carved out of solid rock. And there were inside obvious signs of fires that were set to heat people who lived there. Perhaps the Bedouins did that, perhaps someone else in the centuries that have followed. If you were adventuresome, you had a camel opportunity if you wanted to take it. Here's a picture. Here's a little close-up of the camels that were available there in Petra for hire. And if you wanted to spend the money, you could have a camel ride. I'll take you to another fascinating spot in the Bible lands when we come back right after this. I now want to take you into Israel and back across the Jordan River to a place that they pronounce Caesarea Philippi. And in the Bible, in the New Testament, we have a reference to it, a number of references, but here's the one that I think is most significant for us to think about. In Matthew chapter 16, verse 13 through 20, "Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he was asking his disciples, 'Who do people say that the Son of Man is?' And they said, 'Some say John the Baptist, and others Elijah, still others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets.' He said to them, 'But who do you say that I am?' Simon Peter answered, 'You are the Christ, the Son of the living God.' And Jesus said to him, 'Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overpower it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven." Then he warned the disciples that they should not tell no one that he was the Christ. That they should tell no one that he was the Christ. Sorry, I misread that from across the room here. This is the place where Peter receives the keys to the kingdom, the way to open the doors to the kingdom. The church and the kingdom in the New Testament are referred to in synonymous terms. And this is the place where that promise was given. What I want you to be able to see is the background for that statement. It was in Caesarea Philippi. That's the way they pronounce it over there. And it makes sense because it was dedicated to one of the Caesars. And when you get to Caesarea Philippi, you're at first struck with the amount of water that you find there. This is one of the sources for the Jordan River. And that water flows right out of that hole that you see coming up out of that mountain there. And it's of ample supply. And as you direct your eye toward that cave or hole in the middle of the picture there, that's the place where idol worship is to be found in Caesarea Philippi. It's a place where sacrifice was made. It's a place where you will find many different shrines to many different gods. And when we come back in just a minute, I want to talk about the significance of that in some detail. Watch this. I want you to see this. I'm running out of time a little bit here this morning, but here's one of the signs located at Caesarea Philippi that shows the grotto, the ruins of the grotto of the god Pan. Now, here's Pan. He was a half goat, half man deity. He appealed to them because he was involved in all kinds of fertility rites and bestiality, and let your mind go wild here. I don't want to be too specific, but he was one of the favorite gods of the day 2,000 years ago because he incited the lusts that men desired in their hearts. Here he's depicted, Pan is, with Aphrodite and with Eros. That little figure is Eros there. And at Caesarea Philippi, they found statues of Pan engaging in lustful acts. This is a picture, an artist's depiction of what you would find there at Caesarea Philippi in the first century. These temples would have been established there by the first century. And the picture in the middle is the one that you've seen before, where the cave, where the spring originates and where sacrifices were made. Here's what I want you to think about. A sacrifice would be slaughtered and thrown into that cave in water. That water then bubbles underground and comes out in the little stream that you see in the foreground. If the sacrifice was accepted by the god Pan, it disappeared and no part of it was ever seen again. If it was rejected, they said, blood would be seen in the waters that flowed in the foreground. So what I want you to see is this was a picture of gross idolatry and sacrifice, of immorality, and a place that in Jesus' day was world-renowned for that kind of worship. This is a picture of the ruins as they exist today, and they've identified different temple areas, one to Zeus, one to Pan, one to Aphrodite, one to Aramis. In the rocks, again in the solid rocks, you find many of these little shrines carved in. And if you look at this one in particular, how elaborate it is, how much time it must have taken to carve out such an elaborate shrine. This you're looking at are the floor stones for the Temple of Zeus, and here is a marker identifying the tomb of the sacred goats. Thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of bones of animals and of goats in particular were found here on this site. And here are the remnants in the ruins of that temple. Carved in the rock is an image of Pan, who would herd the goats with his flute and cause them to follow him. And here again are some ruins of that. Beautiful place to visit, but you're struck with the idolatry of it all. And then to realize that this is one of the three streams that become the Jordan River, and it actually flows right just out of the solid rock and mountain. Again, here's another little plaque that identifies that a temple of Zeus, their favorite god, existed there. And another image, if you were with us in Jerash, you've seen images similar to this before of Zeus. Zeus was the god who's represented with the lightning bolts, and this was the place that was dedicated to him there. These stones, which we will see in other places in our visits to the Bible lands, are what are referred to as well-hewn stones, very, very smartly carved. And when you come from from that cave to a little amphitheater area. They found some first century seats that looked back at the sacrifice area. This is the place where Jesus made the statement. As the apostles looked at these temples of idolatry in Zeus and Pan and Aphrodite, he asked them, "Who do the Son of Men say that I am?" And Peter said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." I want to talk a little bit more about this next week because we've run out of time, but isn't it amazing that that was the backdrop to this statement? Hope you tune in next week, and we'll go right back to Caesarea Philippi for a little more explanation of this passage. Tune in next week. Bye-bye. We thank you for your interest in What Do the Scriptures Say. We hope that you'll come back to scripturesay.com often for answers to your Bible questions. See you then.